Long before dogs curled at our feet, long before they followed us through doorways or slept beside us at night, there were wolves, fierce, independent, and endlessly watchful. They roamed vast forests, expansive plains, and frozen tundras, moving with silent precision. Every step was measured. Every muscle tuned for survival. Sharp eyes scanned the horizon. Ears caught the faintest whisper of movement, and noses sniffed scents carried on the wind, telling them about prey predators and danger long before humans or other animals could perceive it. Life was harsh. Food was never guaranteed. Shelter was temporary. Survival depended on instinct, intelligence, and the ability to read the world with perfect accuracy. Humans too were survivors. They moved quietly through the wild, learning the rhythm of the seasons, the patterns of prey, and the behavior of predators. Nights were perilous. Wolves were not their only threat. Bears, large cats, and rival human tribes all posed mortal danger. Yet humans endured, learning to harness fire, craft tools, and form small social units capable of defending themselves. Life was a constant negotiation with the environment, a series of calculated risks, and a test of endurance. And somewhere in this unforgiving landscape, paths began to intersect. Wolves approached human camps, not out of affection, but out of opportunity. The scent of roasted meat, discarded bones, and the warmth of a glowing firelight carried across the dark forest. Curiosity drove the wolves forward, tempered by caution. The first encounters were tense. Humans noticed shadows at the edge of their firelight. Some reacted with anger, hurling stones or shouting warnings. Others brandished spears, trying to drive these wild creatures back. And a few, more passive or simply curious themselves, did nothing. They allowed the wolves to remain at a distance, watching, observing. This tolerance, though small, was the beginning of something extraordinary. Wolves began to learn which humans posed threats and which did not. Those that were cautious, patient, and intelligent survived. Those that were reckless or aggressive perished. Over generations, wolves adapted their behavior to the presence of humans, learning subtle cues about body language, vocal tones, and patterns of daily life. Children, fearless and curious, often approached the edges of the campfire, their laughter carrying into the night. Wolves tilted their heads, observing with human children with keen intelligence, noting that these small, fragile beings posed no immediate threat. Gradually a silent understanding formed. Wolves began exploring closer, stepping cautiously toward humans, learning the rhythms of human life. Humans in turn began noticing individual wolves. The silver one. The limping wolf. The one with the black, tipped tail. They recognized that each wolf had unique traits, temperaments, and patterns. Recognition fostered attachment. Wolves were no longer mere predators at the edge of the forest, they became known companions. Individual beings with personalities and behaviors worthy of observation and, eventually, trust. Hunting provided a layer to the relationship. Wolves, in their natural hunting strategies, inadvertently aided humans. They could flush prey toward waiting hunters or alert humans to the presence of distant game. Humans learned to read subtle wolf cues, ear position, tail movement, gaze, and body posture. A dialogue emerged without words, based on instinct, observation, and repeated experience. Cooperation developed, initially for survival, but gradually forming bonds that were deeper than necessity alone. Behavioral evolution accelerated among wolves living near humans. Aggression softened. Patience became essential. Playfulness, once a minor part of social interaction among wild wolves, became prominent, especially around children. Vocal communication evolved. Long, mournful howls were replaced by barks, whines, and other sounds intelligible to humans, signaling mood, intention, or request. Humans responded, sometimes with laughter, sometimes with a cautious hand extended, sometimes with food. Emotional bonds formed naturally, reinforced by daily interaction. Wolves were mourned when they died, celebrated when they survived hunts or protected human children. They became intertwined in human social and emotional life. Settling into permanent villages brought new challenges and opportunities. Wolves adapted. They learned to navigate structures, fences, and stored food. They coexisted with other domesticated animals, goats, sheep, chickens, learning which ones posed no threat and which required caution. Wolves became guardians, watching over children, alerting humans to danger, and protecting livestock. They learned to anticipate human needs, staying close yet never interfering with daily routines. Playfulness and companionship thrived, particularly around the young. Wolves that tolerated humans and adapted to these new social and environmental pressures survived. Those that could not were driven away or failed to reproduce. Morphological changes followed. Faces softened, jaws became smaller, eyes became expressive, reflecting attention, curiosity, and intelligence. Ears became more communicative, capable of subtle movements that conveyed intention and emotion. Wolves learned to read human gestures, tone, and body language with incredible accuracy. Humans reinforced these behaviors by providing warmth, food, safety, and attention to the calm, loyal, and attentive wolves. These interactions formed the early stages of domestication, a process organic and reciprocal, rather than imposed by force. The emotional bond deepened further. Wolves were no longer distant observers. They slept near humans, followed them during daily activities, and became integrated into the rhythms of human life. Trust became attachment became affection, and affection became loyalty. Children grew up alongside wolves, learning empathy, social intelligence, and patience. Wolves in turn read gestures, moods, and intentions, responding with loyalty, vigilance, and playfulness. They became family, both in practical function and emotional significance. Generations passed, natural selection reinforced desirable traits: calmness, social flexibility, attentiveness, loyalty. Aggressive or unpredictable wolves were gradually excluded. Emotional intelligence became a survival trait. By the time early agriculture flourished, proto-dogs were fully integrated into human life. They guarded homes, assisted in hunts, comforted children, and became symbols of courage, loyalty, and companionship. The line between wolf and dog blurred. Humans influenced behavior, survival, and reproduction, while wolves influenced human social life, emotional growth, and safety. Morphological, behavioral, and emotional traits converged, producing the first true dogs, creatures capable of deep attachment, empathy, and cooperation, yet still retaining traces of their wild heritage. They had become family in every sense. From predator to protector, from observer to companion. The journey of the wolf into the dog illustrates patience, observation, and co-evolution. Fear became curiosity, curiosity became trust, trust became cooperation, and cooperation became love. Wolves at the edge of the firelight became guardians, playmates, helpers, and eventually beloved members of the household. Every wagging tail, every loyal gaze, every playful interaction stands as a testament to thousands of years of co-evolution. Even today, every interaction with a dog reflects this long history. From the first wolf glimpsed at the edge of a firelight to the dog curled at your feet, the story remains the same: humans and dogs, partners in life, bound by loyalty, trust, and love. Every nuzzle, bark, and shared moment continues the journey of a bond that in the wild, and now thrives in homes across the world. Timeless and unbroken. As centuries passed, the relationship between humans and these early companions deepened in ways that were almost imperceptible at first, yet transformative in the long arc of history. Wolves that had adapted to human presence began to display behaviors previously unseen in the wild. They were no longer purely reactive, acting only in the moment to hunt or defend. They began to anticipate human actions, to study patterns, and to subtly adjust their own behavior in response. Every meal, every movement, every gesture of a human in the camp was a lesson, recorded and interpreted with astonishing intelligence. Humans began to notice patterns in these creatures as well. Certain wolves were bolder, approaching more closely, while others hung back, observant and cautious. Some followed the hunters silently, reading the movement of the prey, and even predicting its likely direction. These observations sparked fascination and curiosity. Over time, humans learned to differentiate between the wolves that were potentially dangerous, those that were neutral, and those that could be trusted. The bond, though still fragile, was being cemented, built on careful observation, mutual respect, and the subtle exchange of signals between species. The nights brought another layer to this growing partnership. While humans slept, wolves patrolled the perimeter of the camp, their senses alert to every whisper of sound or movement in the darkness. Wolves' acute hearing and smell provided humans with an invisible safety net. Occasionally the sudden bark or growl of a wolf would awaken the camp, alerting its human companions to approaching predators or the distant footsteps of other humans. Over time, these nightly guardians were no longer seen merely as animals. They were protectors, integrated into the rhythm of human life, trusted in ways that no other wild creature had ever been trusted before. Children played a critical role in strengthening these bonds. Their fearless curiosity encouraged closer contact, gentle interactions, and trust, building exercises without formal instruction. Wolves learned that these small humans posed no threat. They engaged in play, chasing one another, sharing moments of gentle nuzzles and mock fights that taught the children patience, empathy, and understanding of animal behavior. In return, children learned the importance of care, respect, and observation, skills that would become second nature and essential in early human societies. Hunting, once a solitary pursuit or small, group endeavor, became a cooperative activity between humans and wolves. Wolves' natural ability to track, corner, and herd prey complemented human skill in trapping, driving, and killing. Each successful hunt reinforced trust and mutual respect. Wolves were not just passive participants, they became active collaborators, reading human cues, anticipating moves, and adjusting their strategies accordingly. Over generations, this cooperation shaped not just behavior but genetics. The wolves that could work alongside humans thrived, while those that could not were gradually excluded from the emerging social ecosystem. The village life, when humans finally settled in permanent locations, created an environment of structured interdependence. Wolves navigated homes, fences, and shared spaces with remarkable dexterity. They learned the schedules, the routines, and the rituals of their human companions. They became guardians of children, alerting adults to dangers, and protecting the livestock that formed the backbone of human subsistence. At the same time, wolves remained playful and social, particularly in interactions with the young, whose curiosity and gentleness encouraged gentle behavior and loyalty. Morphological changes continued over generations. Wolves' faces became softer, their bodies more adaptable to long-term proximity with humans, and their eyes increasingly expressive. Through the subtle pressures of cohabitation, the early wolves that were most successful in human society were those that could communicate effectively, read emotions accurately, and display loyalty consistently. These traits were reinforced both behaviorally and genetically, leading naturally to the emergence of proto-dogs, creatures that were beginning to bridge the gap between wildness and companionship. The emotional and psychological dimensions of this partnership cannot be overstated. Humans began to see wolves as more than tools or guardians, they were companions, friends, and even family members. Children grew up with these animals at their side, learning social skills, empathy, and cooperation through repeated, playful interactions. Humans began to reward certain behaviors, such as calmness, attentiveness, and loyalty, with food, protection, and affection. These seemingly small acts created profound evolutionary pressures, shaping the emerging domesticated lineage in ways no human could have consciously directed. Language and communication between species began to emerge subtly. Wolves learned to interpret human tones, facial expressions, and gestures, while humans started recognizing subtle vocalizations, movements, and signals in the wolves. a bark, a whine, a tilted head, each conveyed meaning. Humans responded with their own gestures and tones, creating a dialogue of instinct, observation, and learned patterns. Over time, this communication became more refined, forming the basis for complex cooperative behavior and mutual understanding that would be impossible in the wild. The protective instincts of wolves, combined with their social intelligence, created profound emotional bonds. They mourned the loss of human companions, celebrated shared victories, and adjusted behavior in response to family dynamics. Humans in turn, mourned lost wolves and celebrated their loyalty, courage, and intelligence. Storytelling and oral traditions began to incorporate these animals, embedding them into the myths, legends, and cultural practices of early societies. Wolves were no longer distant predators, they were integral to the human experience, influencing not just survival, but culture, social organization, and emotional life. By this stage, proto-dogs had emerged, wolves that had been shaped by centuries of coexistence, social learning, and selective pressures favoring cooperation, loyalty, and emotional attunement. Morphological traits continued to evolve: softer faces, expressive eyes, flexible bodies capable of nuanced communication. Behavioral traits, such as playfulness, attachment, and social intelligence, became more pronounced. These early dogs were uniquely adapted to human society, bridging the gap between the wild and domestic, instinct and affection, predator and companion. The process of domestication was not deliberate, but emerged organically, through a combination of environmental pressures, social learning, and mutual adaptation. Humans and wolves co-evolved, shaping each other's behaviors, emotions, and even genetic trajectories. By the time human settlements became permanent, these proto-dogs were fully integrated into daily life. They guarded homes, assisted in hunting, protected children, and participated in social rituals. They had become family members in every meaningful sense, marking the beginning of an unbroken bond that would last for thousands of years. As time passed, the bond between humans and these early companions grew more intricate, touching every facet of daily life. Wolves, now more accustomed to human presence, became attuned to subtle cues of emotion, movement, and intent. They could sense tension before it erupted into conflict, detect fear or anxiety, and respond with comforting gestures or protective postures. Humans, in turn, learned to read the body language, vocalizations, and even the gaze of these animals. A wolf's watchful stare, a tail held high, or a gentle nudge became part of an unspoken language, a dialogue built on instinct, observation, and mutual trust. The integration of wolves into human social life extended beyond mere survival. Villagers began to recognize the value of companionship. Wolves were playful, curious, and intelligent, providing amusement, teaching lessons about patience, and encouraging emotional growth. Children learned empathy and cooperation through interactions with these animals, discovering the responsibilities of care, respect, and gentle discipline. Over time, humans and wolves began sharing not just space, but experiences, forming bonds that would shape both species' evolution. Hunting practices became increasingly collaborative. Wolves, with their natural tracking and herding instincts, complemented human strategies. A coordinated effort emerged: wolves would silently drive prey toward human hunters, anticipate the movement of game, and sometimes even prevent prey from escaping the designated area. Humans, in turn, adapted their approach, learning to signal, gesture, and adjust in harmony with the animals. Each successful hunt reinforced trust, loyalty, and cooperation, cementing the wolf's role as an essential member of the survival unit. The development of permanent villages brought new challenges and opportunities. Wolves learned to navigate human-made structures, fences, huts, storage areas, without damaging property or threatening humans. They became guardians, not only of children but of livestock, watching over the village while humans worked or rested. Their presence brought a sense of security, and over generations, humans came to rely on these early companions as protectors. This protective role deepened emotional bonds, as humans recognized the intelligence, loyalty, and dedication of these animals. As the centuries passed, morphological and behavioral changes continued to shape the lineage of wolves living alongside humans. Faces became softer, expressions more nuanced and eyes more communicative, capable of conveying curiosity, alertness, and affection. Jaws became less robust, reflecting a reduced need for purely predatory strength, while ears became increasingly mobile, allowing for complex social signaling. Behavioral traits, playfulness, attentiveness, loyalty, and social intelligence, were reinforced by daily interactions, forming the foundation for the domesticated dogs we know today. The emotional connection between humans and wolves also influenced cultural practices. Stories of loyalty, courage, and intelligence began to circulate orally, embedding these animals into the collective memory of communities. They were celebrated not only for practical assistance, but also for their symbolic presence. Wolves represented guardianship, fidelity, and cooperation, becoming central figures, myths, rituals, and even early forms of spiritual belief. Their presence shaped not just survival strategies but the moral and emotional fabric of early societies. Children, particularly, played a transformative role in shaping the social intelligence of wolves. Through repeated interaction, play, and gentle correction, young humans taught the animals patience, empathy, and social flexibility. Wolves, in response, became increasingly adept at understanding human emotional states, responding with care, attention, and affection. The playful interactions, once simple games of chase or tug, evolved into a complex social training ground for both species, reinforcing bonds and preparing both for a life of collaboration and companionship. Over time, humans began to actively favor certain behaviors. Wolves that demonstrated calmness, loyalty, and intelligence were allowed closer access to families, receiving food, warmth, and attention. Those that were aggressive, unpredictable, or overly independent were gradually excluded from the village life. This unintentional selection pressure shaped the emerging proto-dog population, reinforcing traits that would eventually define domesticated dogs. Natural selection, guided by human social preferences, emotional intelligence, and cooperative behavior, molded the lineage into creatures uniquely adapted to life alongside humans. The emergence of proto-dogs marked a profound shift in the human-animal relationship. These animals were no longer merely tolerated, they were integral participants in daily life. They slept at the edges of huts, followed humans through the woods, and participated in hunting, guarding, and social activities. Trust evolved into attachment, attachment into affection, and affection into loyalty. Families began to treat these animals as members of the household, celebrating their survival, mourning their losses, and sharing in their intelligence and playfulness. Communication between species became increasingly refined. Wolves learned to interpret complex human gestures, facial expressions, and tones of voice. Humans, in turn, recognized subtle vocalizations, body postures, and cues that conveyed meaning, intention, or emotion. A simple tilt of the head, a bark, a whine, or a gentle nudge conveyed messages of alert, request, or comfort. This intricate dialogue laid the groundwork for cooperative behaviors and emotional bonds that would endure for millennia. Protective instincts deepened over generations. Wolves learned to guard human children, intervene when dangers approached, and alert humans to potential threats with remarkable precision. Their intelligence, combined with social and emotional attunement, made them invaluable companions. Humans responded with affection, rewards, and protection, reinforcing the behaviors that aligned with loyalty, cooperation, and emotional connection. These interactions formed the core of the human-dog relationship, demonstrating how co-evolution could shape behavior, social bonds, and ultimately, the course of two species' destinies. By the time agriculture and permanent settlements became widespread, proto-dogs were fully integrated into human society. They had evolved to coexist with humans, bridging the gap between wild instinct and domestic attachment. Morphological adaptations: expressive eyes, flexible bodies, communicative ears and softer faces, paired with behavioral traits like loyalty, playfulness, and attentiveness, defined a new species uniquely adapted to life alongside humans. These early dogs were simultaneously wild and domestic, independent yet deeply bonded, instinctual yet emotionally responsive. This period of co-evolution set the stage for the modern dog. The foundations of companionship, cooperation, and emotional bonding were laid, forming a complex social and genetic structure that would endure for thousands of years. From the distant forests where wolves once prowled, to the heart of human villages, these early dogs became indispensable, shaping not only survival strategies, but the very nature of human emotional life. With the emergence of proto-dogs fully integrated into human life, the relationship between humans and these companions became increasingly complex and nuanced. The animals were no longer merely helpers or guardians. They were active participants in the daily rhythm of human existence. Each day brought new lessons, small experiments in communication, and subtle negotiations of trust. Wolves, turned dogs, observed the world around them with an intelligence that surpassed instinct alone. They began predicting human actions, anticipating needs, and responding in ways that seemed almost conscious. Villagers relied on them not just for protection or hunting, but for companionship and social learning. Wolves that had once scavenged at the edge of the campfire, now engaged directly with human children, teaching patience, empathy, and social cues through playful interaction. Games of chase, gentle wrestling, and mimicry became vital lessons for both species. Children learned to interpret body language, subtle vocalizations, and emotional states. In turn, wolves learned that calmness, loyalty, and attentiveness were rewarded with affection, food, and proximity, strengthening the bonds that would define the species for generations. Hunting strategies evolved alongside these social interactions. Proto-dogs, understanding the human intention, would work cooperatively during hunts, flanking prey, herding it toward hunters, or silently signaling danger or opportunity. Humans, reading these signals, adapted their movements, gestures, and calls to coordinate seamlessly with their companions. Each successful hunt reinforced the mutual trust and respect between species, laying a foundation for an unprecedented co-evolutionary relationship. As villages expanded into permanent settlements, the integration of proto-dogs into domestic life deepened. They learned to navigate huts, fences, and communal spaces without causing harm, all while maintaining vigilance over children and livestock. Their presence brought a new sense of security, reducing the constant anxiety that once accompanied village life in a wild and dangerous world. These animals were more than guardians. They were constant companions, deeply woven into the social and emotional fabric of human communities. Morphological changes continued to reflect this intimate bond. Wolves' faces softened further. Jaws adapted for different feeding patterns, and ears and eyes became highly expressive, capable of communicating nuanced emotions. Behavioral traits such as playfulness, loyalty, attentiveness, and social intelligence became increasingly pronounced. These characteristics were reinforced both by environmental pressures and by human preference, resulting in a lineage that was uniquely adapted to coexist with humanity. The emotional dimension of this relationship also expanded. Wolves were no longer viewed solely through the lens of utility. They were friends, confidants, and family members. Humans began to celebrate their loyalty, mourned their deaths, and integrated stories of their courage and intelligence into oral traditions. These animals shaped not only practical survival strategies but also moral, social, and cultural frameworks. The narrative of human-wolf companionship began to permeate early myths, songs and rituals, symbolizing trust, fidelity, and cooperation. Children played a particularly critical role in the domestication process. Their interactions with wolves taught the animals patience, flexibility, and empathy. Gentle guidance, play, and repeated positive reinforcement shaped the social intelligence of the proto-dogs. Wolves, in turn, provided children with lessons in attentiveness, observation, and emotional understanding. These early interactions formed the basis for a bond that was as much emotional as it was practical, ensuring that dogs would occupy a unique space in human society for millennia to come. Communication became increasingly sophisticated. Wolves interpreted human gestures, expressions, and tones with remarkable precision, while humans learned to understand subtle vocalizations, postures, and cues from their companions. A bark, whine, nuzzle, or tilt of the head conveyed complex meaning, allowing for cooperative behavior and deep emotional connection. This silent language became the foundation for the social and cognitive bridge that transformed wolves into dogs and companions into family. Protective instincts intensified over generations. Wolves learned to watch over children, alert humans to threats, and intervene when danger approached. Humans responded with care, affection, and rewards, reinforcing behaviors associated with loyalty and attentiveness. These repeated interactions strengthened not only the bond between species, but also the emotional intelligence and cooperative capacity of proto-dogs. The relationship was no longer one-sided. Humans and dogs were partners, shaping each other's behavior and survival strategies. As agriculture and permanent settlements became widespread, the role of proto-dogs expanded even further. They were central to human survival and social organization. They guarded homes, protected livestock, participated in hunting, and became integral to ritual celebrations and everyday life. Their loyalty, intelligence, and companionship transformed villages, providing not just practical benefits, but emotional and psychological support. Humans had evolved alongside them, and the animals had evolved alongside humans, a mutual journey of adaptation, learning and trust. The first true dogs emerged from this co-evolutionary process. Their morphology, behavior, and social intelligence reflected centuries of close interaction with humans. Expressive eyes, softer faces, flexible bodies, and communicative ears combined with traits of loyalty, playfulness, and attentiveness. These creatures were simultaneously wild and domestic, instinctive and affectionate, independent yet deeply bonded. They had crossed the boundary from predator to protector to companion, and from stranger to family member. By this stage, the human-dog relationship was fully established, laying the groundwork for the extraordinary diversity and specialization of modern dog breeds. From the loyal village guardian to the hunting companion, these early dogs demonstrated remarkable adaptability and intelligence. The partnership that began at the edge of firelight had evolved into a profound, co-dependent bond that would endure through centuries, shaping both species in ways that are still visible today. Even now, when a dog curls at your feet or nudges your hand for attention, we are witnessing the echo of thousands of years of evolution, trust, and mutual learning. Each glance, bark, and movement carries the weight of a shared history, a testament to the incredible journey from wild wolf to beloved companion. This segment of history tells us not only about the evolution of dogs, but also about the capacity for empathy, cooperation, and emotional connection that defines both humans and the animals they call family. With the emergence of true dogs, human society entered a new era of partnership, one that extended far beyond survival and protection. These animals were no longer passive participants, they actively shaped the daily rhythm of life, influencing everything from hunting techniques to social interactions, even to the emotional well-being of human families. The presence of dogs introduced a layer of cooperation and understanding that had never existed before, creating a shared world where instinct and affection intertwined. Early villages relied on dogs for much more than their acute senses or physical capabilities. Their attentiveness and intelligence allowed them to become natural sentinels, capable of identifying threats long before humans could. Wolves turned, dogs patrolled boundaries, observed strangers approaching, and communicated potential danger through barks, growls, or even subtle body movements. Humans learned to interpret these signals with increasing sophistication, forming a silent language that guided social behavior and provided reassurance. Over generations, this communication became highly nuanced, allowing for an almost seamless understanding between human and dog. The emotional dimension of the relationship deepened further. Dogs began to mirror human moods, responding to joy, anger, fear, or calm with behaviors that were both empathetic and socially appropriate. A frightened child might be nudged gently by a dog. A hunter preparing for a challenging pursuit might be observed with quiet attentiveness, and an alert stance could communicate concern or anticipation. Humans, in turn, learned to respond to these cues, rewarding loyalty and attentiveness with food, praise, or affectionate touch. This ongoing feedback loop strengthened emotional bonds and reinforced behaviors that were mutually beneficial. Play became a cornerstone of social development. The interactions between children and dogs were not simply recreational, they were fundamental to learning. Through games of chase, tug-of-war, and mock fights, children develop patience, empathy, and observation skills, while dogs hone their social intelligence, timing, and responsiveness. These playful engagements created lasting emotional connections and laid the foundation for lifelong trust. Families celebrated these interactions, recognizing that the well-being of dogs was intimately connected to the well-being of humans. Hunting strategies evolved to take full advantage of this partnership. Dogs' abilities to track, herd, and anticipate prey added a new dimension to human hunting methods. They became collaborators, not assistants. Wolves had once merely responded to the immediate environment. Dogs, through co-evolution and selective breeding, learned to interpret human cues and act proactively. This sophisticated cooperation allowed for greater efficiency in hunts, improved survival rates, and reinforced the bond between species. Every successful hunt became a shared achievement, deepening mutual respect and loyalty. Permanent settlements provided further opportunities for integration. Dogs navigated complex social and physical environments with remarkable skill. They learned to coexist with livestock, respect human boundaries, and operate within the structured rhythms of village life. Their vigilance extended beyond mere physical protection. Dogs offered emotional reassurance, reducing anxiety, providing comfort, and even contributing to the social cohesion of early communities. Humans increasingly relied on these animals for both practical and emotional support, further solidifying their indispensable role. Morphological changes were striking as well. Dogs' faces became even more expressive, their eyes capable of conveying a remarkable range of emotion and intention. Bodies became adaptable to prolonged human proximity, with movement suited for cooperation rather than pure predation. Ears and tails became critical tools for communication, reflecting mood, alertness, and social intention. These adaptations were reinforced over generations, shaped by natural selection, human preference, and the social environment, producing a species uniquely attuned to human interaction. Cultural integration of dogs expanded alongside their physical and behavioral evolution. Stories, myths, and rituals began to feature these animals prominently. Tales of loyalty, courage, and intelligence spread through oral tradition, embedding dogs into the moral and emotional framework of early societies. They were celebrated for their protective instincts, their cooperation, and their companionship. Dogs were no longer simply functional, they were symbolic, representing fidelity, vigilance, and a profound emotional capacity for connection across species. Communication between humans and dogs became increasingly refined. Subtle gestures, body language, and vocalizations conveyed complex meanings. A nudge, bark, growl, or tilt of the head could communicate warning, request, comfort, or intention. Humans learned to interpret these signals intuitively, while dogs honed their ability to respond appropriately. This silent, reciprocal dialogue facilitated cooperation in hunting, social organization, protection, and emotional support, illustrating the profound depth of the relationship between the two species. Protective behavior became a defining characteristic. Dogs learned to guard children, intervene during conflicts, and signal approaching threats. They provided constant vigilance, reducing the cognitive and emotional burden on humans. In return, humans offered care, affection, and rewards, reinforcing loyalty and attentiveness. Over generations, these behaviors became genetically and socially embedded, creating a lineage of animals capable of profound emotional resonance, cooperative intelligence, and enduring loyalty. By the time agriculture and early civilizations flourished, dogs had achieved a remarkable integration into human life. They were indispensable companions, shaping the survival, social structure, and emotional landscape of communities. From protecting homes and livestock to assisting in hunting, comforting children, and participating in rituals, dogs were no longer peripheral. They were central to the human experience. Their evolution was inextricably tied to human progress, a testament to the power of co-evolution and mutual adaptation. The story of domestication was not just about survival, it was about transformation. Wolves had crossed the boundary into the human world, evolving into dogs whose morphology, behavior, and social intelligence reflected centuries of shared experience. They had become more expressive, more attentive, and more cooperative, capable of navigating complex human environments and forming deep emotional bonds. Their role extended beyond the practical, entering the realm of cultural, social, and emotional significance. Even today, the echoes of this journey are visible in every interaction between humans and dogs. Every bark, nuzzle, wag of a tail, or protective stance carries the legacy of thousands of co-evolution, adaptation, and emotional connection. Each dog reflects a lineage shaped by survival, trust, loyalty, and mutual care. This segment of history reminds us not only of the evolution of dogs but also of the capacity for empathy, cooperation, and emotional intelligence that defines both humans and the animals they have chosen to call family. As the bond between humans and dogs strengthened, the role of these animals expanded beyond protection and hunting. Dogs became integral to the social fabric of early communities, influencing rituals, daily routines, and even the emotional well-being of human families. They were no longer merely companions or guardians. They were collaborators, teachers, and trusted observers of human life. Every interaction, every shared moment, reinforced the mutual dependence that had evolved over centuries, creating a dynamic relationship that shaped the destinies of both species. In village life, dogs learned to navigate complex social hierarchies. They understood which humans were dominant, which were nurturing, and which required caution. This nuanced perception allowed them to behave appropriately in diverse situations, maintaining harmony while still asserting their own presence. Their attentiveness and intelligence became essential assets for human families. A dog could sense tension before a dispute escalated, detect subtle signs of illness, or alert the household to approaching danger. Their role extended beyond survival, it became social, emotional, and even moral. Children, particularly, continued to shape the evolution of dogs. Playful interactions taught dogs patience, empathy, and flexibility. Gentle guidance, repetitive engagement, and positive reinforcement trained dogs in social skills that were essential for integration into human society. At the same time, children learned critical life skills, observation, empathy, and emotional intelligence through these interactions. Play became a medium for education, bonding, and mutual understanding. Wolves turned dogs were not passive participants. They actively contributed to shaping human behavior and social norms. Hunting practices reached unprecedented levels of sophistication with the collaboration of dogs. Wolves had once hunted individually, or in packs with their own strategies. Dogs learned to interpret human signals, anticipate movements, and execute complex coordinated actions. They could flank prey, herd animals toward humans, or subtly adjust their approach based on human positioning and signals. This cooperation increased the efficiency of hunts, improved survival rates, and reinforced trust between species. Each successful hunt strengthened the bond, proving that collaboration was mutually beneficial and essential for the prosperity of both humans and dogs. Settlements continue to evolve, and with them, the complexity of dog roles. Dogs patrolled boundaries, protected livestock, and ensured the safety of children and vulnerable members of the community. They learned to navigate human-made structures with agility, understanding spaces that were safe, off-limits, or hazardous. Their vigilance provided humans with freedom and security, allowing for the development of agriculture, trade, and more complex social structures. The presence of dogs reduced fear and anxiety, embedding a sense of trust and stability in human communities. Morphological evolution paralleled these behavioral changes. Dogs' faces became more expressive, capable of conveying emotions ranging from curiosity to concern. Eyes communicated intention and mood, enabling nuanced understanding between species. Ears, tails, and body posture evolved into complex tools of non-verbal communication. Behaviorally, dogs displayed increasing levels of loyalty, attentiveness, playfulness, and social intelligence. These traits were selected naturally and reinforced socially, resulting in a lineage uniquely adapted for coexistence with humans. Cultural integration of dogs also deepened. Oral traditions, myths, and rituals began to feature these animals prominently. Dogs were celebrated for their loyalty, courage, and intelligence, appearing in stories of heroism, companionship, and moral guidance. They were symbolic as well as practical, representing fidelity, protection, and the bond between humans and the natural world. Communities revered dogs not only for their utility, but for their capacity to embody the values and emotional depth that humans prized. Communication between humans and dogs became increasingly refined. Subtle gestures, glances, and vocalizations carried rich meaning. A tilt of the head, a nudge, or a bark could convey warning, request, comfort, or intention. Humans learned to interpret these cues intuitively, while dogs honed their ability to respond appropriately. This unspoken dialogue facilitated cooperation in hunting, protection, and social organization, demonstrating the profound cognitive and emotional capabilities that dogs had developed through millennia of co-evolution. Protective behavior became an integral aspect of dog identity. Dogs guarded children, intervened in conflicts, and alerted humans to threats with remarkable precision. Their vigilance reduced stress, enhanced community safety, and reinforced human reliance on their presence. In return, humans provided care, affection, and social reinforcement, embedding these behaviors within both genetic and social frameworks. This reciprocal influence ensured the persistence of loyalty, attentiveness, and emotional intelligence as core traits of the evolving dog lineage. By the time agriculture and early urban centers emerged, dogs were fully integrated into human life. Their roles spanned protection, hunting, companionship, emotional support, and cultural symbolism. Dogs were central to human survival and social cohesion, shaping not only daily routines but also long-term societal development. Their evolution was inseparable from human progress, illustrating the profound impact of mutual adaptation and cooperation. The domestication of dogs represents a unique narrative in evolutionary history. Wolves, once solitary hunters and fearsome predators, had become loyal, empathetic companions through thousands of observation, adaptation, and cooperation. Morphological, behavioral, and emotional changes converged to produce creatures capable of understanding human intentions, engaging in cooperative behavior, and forming deep emotional bonds. These animals were no longer wild observers, they were active participants in human life, shaping the development of societies, culture, and emotional intelligence. Even today, the influence of this long history is visible in every interaction with dogs. Every nuzzle, bark, or wag of the tail reflects thousands of years of co-evolution, trust, and emotional exchange. Dogs embody the legacy of a partnership that began in the wild, at the edge of firelight, and continues in homes around the world. Each interaction is a reminder of the deep, enduring bond between humans and dogs, a bond built on loyalty, trust, and mutual respect. As humans and dogs continue to evolve together, the relationship deepened in ways that went beyond survival or utility. Dogs were no longer just hunters, guardians, or playful companions. They became integral to the very emotional and social structure of human communities. Their presence influenced daily life, shaped social interactions, and contributed to the development of cultural norms, moral understanding, and even spiritual beliefs. The bond between species had matured into a complex partnership, built over generations of observation, cooperation, and trust. In early villages, dogs were vital for maintaining social harmony. They learned to recognize the emotional states of humans, discerning anger, sadness, excitement, or calm. By responding appropriately, through subtle body language, protective positioning, or playful engagement, dogs mediated social tensions and reinforced positive behavior. A calm, alert dog could diffuse potential conflicts between humans, while a playful interaction with it fostered empathy and emotional growth. Humans, in turn, learned to interpret these responses, forming a sophisticated, non-verbal dialogue that transcended instinct and entered the realm of intentional communication. Children remain central to this evolutionary process. Through repeated interaction with dogs, young humans develop critical life skills: observation, patience, empathy, and emotional intelligence. They learn to read subtle gestures, understand intentions, and respect the boundaries of another living being. At the same time, dogs refine their ability to understand human cues, respond to social norms, and adapt to complex environments. Play, once a simple survival skill, became a sophisticated educational and bonding tool for both species. Hunting strategies evolved in tandem with these social dynamics. Dogs demonstrated remarkable foresight, coordinating with humans to anticipate prey movements, block escape routes, or silently communicate danger. This proactive engagement transformed hunting into a collaborative endeavor, where success relied on the careful interpretation of signals, the precision of movement, and the intuitive understanding of one another. Humans recognized this intelligence, rewarding dogs with food, affection, and inclusion, reinforcing behaviors that were essential for cooperative survival. Permanent settlements expanded the roles of dogs even further. Beyond hunting and protection, they provided early warning systems, emotional support, and companionship that allowed humans to take greater risks, explore new territories, and engage in complex social organization. Dogs navigated human structures with agility, understood rules of domestic space, and maintained vigilance over children, livestock, and valuable resources. Their presence reduced fear and stress, enabling communities to thrive in ways that would have been impossible without these early companions. Morphological evolution paralleled these behavioral adaptations. Dogs' faces became increasingly expressive, capable of conveying a wide range of emotions and intentions. Eyes, ears, and tails served as tools of communication, enhancing non-verbal understanding between humans and dogs. Bodies became more flexible and adaptable, suited for prolonged proximity and cooperation with humans. Behavioral traits such as loyalty, attentiveness, social intelligence, and playfulness became embedded through both natural selection and social reinforcement, creating a lineage uniquely attuned to life alongside humanity. Cultural integration of dogs also deepened during this period. Oral traditions, stories, and rituals frequently featured these animals, celebrating their loyalty, courage, and intelligence. Dogs became symbols of protection, fidelity, and the deep emotional bonds that humans could share with another species. In some communities, dogs were associated with spiritual guidance, serving as mediators between humans and the natural or unseen world. Their influence extended beyond daily life, shaping the ethical, social, and moral frameworks of human societies. communication continued to evolve in subtle but profound ways. Dogs could interpret the slightest human gestures, facial expressions, or tonal variations, while humans learned to respond to nuanced vocalizations, postures, and behaviors from their companions. A simple tilt of the head, a bark, a whine, or a gentle nudge could convey warning, request, reassurance, or intention. This silent dialogue became increasingly sophisticated, facilitating cooperative hunting, domestic harmony, and complex social interaction. Humans and dogs developed a shared language of behavior and emotion, one that shaped the trajectory of both species. Protective instincts were refined through experience and social reinforcement. Dogs monitored children, intervened in conflicts, and provided early warning against predators or intruders. Humans responded with care, praise and resources, reinforcing behaviors associated with vigilance, loyalty, and social intelligence. Over generations, these traits became genetically and socially ingrained, producing animals capable of profound emotional attunement and cooperative intelligence. Dogs had evolved from wild predators to essential members of human society, fully integrated into the emotional and practical fabric of village life. By the time agriculture and early urban centers flourished, dogs were fully embedded in human society. They were indispensable not only for survival, but for the emotional and social cohesion of communities. Their roles encompassed protection, hunting, companionship, emotional support, and cultural significance. Dogs shaped human routines, influenced social norms, and contributed to the collective identity of communities. Their evolution was intertwined with human progress, a testament to the power of co-adaptation, trust, and mutual understanding. The domestication of dogs was not a linear or deliberate process, it was a dynamic co-evolutionary journey. Wolves had gradually transformed into dogs through centuries of interaction, observation, morphological changes, behavioral refinement, and emotional intelligence emerged in response to human social structures, preferences, and daily life. Dogs were no longer wild observers, they were collaborators, partners, and family. Their journey from predator to companion illustrates the remarkable power of patience, observation, and the slow accumulation of trust over generations. Even today, every interaction with a dog reflects this deep history. Every nuzzle, bark, wag, or protective stance carries the legacy of thousands of years of co-evolution, trust, and emotional exchange. Dogs embody the lineage of mutual learning, adaptation, and loyalty that began at the edge of firelight, shaped the development of human societies, and continues to influence the emotional lives of people around the world. Each interaction reminds us of the profound bond between humans and dogs, a bond defined by loyalty, cooperation, and enduring companionship. As human settlements grew and civilizations began to take shape, the role of dogs evolved beyond practical necessity and into the realm of emotional, social, and even spiritual significance. These early companions were no longer seen solely as helpers or guards, they had become woven into the fabric of daily life, their presence shaping family dynamics, social hierarchies, and cultural traditions. Dogs were in essence, co-creators of human experience, influencing how communities interacted, celebrated, and protected one another. In the villages and early towns, dogs were keen observers. They watched human interactions with the same intelligence and attentiveness that had allowed their ancestors to survive alongside humans for centuries. They learned to interpret not only immediate gestures and tones, but also subtle shifts in mood and intent. A tense conversation might be met with a watchful stance, a calming presence, or a gentle nudge toward reconciliation. These behaviors, honed over generations, demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of human emotion and social structure. Children continued to play a central role in the evolving relationship between dogs and humans. Play was no longer just a source of joy. It was a critical educational and social mechanism. Wolves turned, dogs engaged in games of chase, tug and mock battles, teaching children lessons in empathy, patience, cooperation, and emotional intelligence. In return, children learn to read the nuanced behaviors of their companions, reinforcing mutual trust and deepening the interspecies bond. Through repeated interactions, dogs became both educators and students, learning from humans while teaching them about social behavior and emotional awareness. Hunting practices have become a highly cooperative enterprise. Dogs, with their keen senses and evolving intelligence, became integral to the planning and execution of hunts. They could flank prey, herd animals toward human hunters, and even anticipate movements based on subtle environmental cues. Humans learned to interpret canine gestures and vocalizations, adjusting their strategies accordingly. The result was a partnership in which success depended on communication, trust, and an intuitive understanding of one another. Each hunt reinforced loyalty, cooperation, and emotional attachment, solidifying the role of dogs as indispensable partners in survival. As settlements became more complex, dogs adapted to new responsibilities. They patrolled boundaries, guarded livestock, and ensured the safety of children and vulnerable community members. Their ability to navigate human-built environments, understand social hierarchies, and respond to threats with intelligence and restraint made them central to village life. They were not merely present, they actively contributed to the stability, security, and cohesion of early societies. Morphological and behavioral evolution continued apace. Dogs developed even more expressive eyes, capable of conveying subtle emotions and intentions. Ears, tails, and body posture became increasingly sophisticated tools of communication. Their bodies adapted for a balance of agility, endurance, and close proximity to humans, allowing them to function effectively in domestic, hunting, and protective roles. Behavioral traits, playfulness, loyalty, attentiveness, and social intelligence were reinforced through generations of interaction, forming a lineage uniquely suited to life alongside humans. Cultural integration of dogs expanded significantly. They became central figures in myths, rituals, and traditions. Tales of loyalty, courage, and intelligence spread throughout communities, embedding dogs in the collective consciousness as symbols of fidelity, protection, and emotional depth. Dogs were celebrated not only for their practical contributions, but also for their ability to embody ideals that humans cherished. In some cultures, they were revered as spiritual guides, mediators between humans and the natural or supernatural world, further elevating their status from companion to sacred presence. Communication between humans and dogs had reached remarkable sophistication. Gestures, vocalizations, and body language carried nuanced meaning. A gentle nuzzle, a focused gaze, a specific bark or whine could communicate complex emotions, intentions, or warnings. Humans learned to interpret these signals with subtlety, responding appropriately, while dogs refined their ability to read and react to human cues. This silent dialogue facilitated not only cooperative hunting and protection, but also emotional bonding and social harmony, forming the basis of a uniquely interdependent relationship. Protective instincts were honed through repeated experience and social reinforcement. Dogs learned to monitor children, intervene in conflicts, and alert humans to approaching dangers with precision. Humans rewarded these behaviors with affection, attention, and resources, embedding loyalty, attentiveness, and emotional intelligence in both social and genetic frameworks. Over generations, this reciprocal influence produced animals capable of empathy, problem-solving, and deep social connection, traits that would become hallmarks of domesticated dogs. By the time agriculture and early urban societies flourished, dogs were fully integrated into human life. They were essential not only for protection and hunting, but for emotional support, social cohesion, and cultural identity. Their roles encompassed the practical, the emotional, and the symbolic, influencing daily routines, social hierarchies, and moral narratives. Dogs had transitioned from wild predators to indispensable family members, shaping human evolution as much as humans had shaped theirs. The journey of domestication was an intricate co-evolutionary story. Wolves had adapted to human environments, learning social cues, emotional nuances, and cooperative strategies. Humans in turn, had nurtured, guided, and selectively reinforced these behaviors, creating a lineage that combined intelligence, loyalty, and emotional responsiveness. Dogs had become participants in human life, shaping not only practical survival strategies, but also the emotional, cultural, and social dimensions of society. Even today, every interaction with a dog reflects this rich history. Every bark, nuzzle, or wag of the tail carries the legacy of thousands of years of evolution, adaptation, and trust. Dogs continue to embody the lessons of loyalty, cooperation, and emotional connection that began at the edge of ancient firelight, reinforcing the timeless bond between humans and their best friends. Each moment shared with a dog is a continuation of this extraordinary journey, a testament to the power of trust, empathy, and mutual care across species.